Welcome to Eyes on Books. I'm Elaine Schnitter, and my co-host this morning is Jonathan Williams. I think you'll enjoy the book that we're going to tell you about. The title is The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern. Kind of a mouthful, but I think you will enjoy it once you get into it. We're going to first tell you a little bit about the book, and then we're going to introduce the author, Linda Cohen Leugman, and ask her some questions about how she came up with this wonderful idea. So I hope you enjoy our program, and I hope you find the book and enjoy reading it. Jonathan.
Elaine, I most definitely would encourage anyone to read this book, most especially people who live in our little community, a retirement community. It is such a good book. I enjoyed it so much.
Yes, it would definitely be worthwhile for people who are retired, because the story toggles between the protagonist, Augusta Stern, from when she was a girl in the 20s to now that she's retired in the 1980s. And she goes from New York to Florida, which is very common for people on the East Coast, retiring to Florida. And the author does a wonderful job of bringing us into the 1920s and also the 80s.
Exactly. Yeah, we look back today, they both seem like an earlier period. Certainly, the book opens actually in 1922, and the heroine of the story is Augusta. She's 14 years old when the movie when the book starts. Of course, and then it ends in about 1988. And she's 80 years old.
Yes, she celebrates her 80th birthday during the story. It's a combination of love story, a lot of broken promises, a lot of coincidences occur. People somehow come together unexpectedly. A lot of surprises and a lot of good characters, I think.
It's very much a character-driven story. One aspect of the way she wrote the book that I enjoyed is the dual timeline narrative, I think is what we call that, where you have a chapter or more in 1922, 23, then you jump ahead to 1987, back to 23, forward to 87. It's a marvelous way to tell the story. It allows you to see it, get really acquainted with and close to good, strong feelings for the younger person. And then as she matures, and you see her as an adult, and she's done such a remarkable life. So it's told from Augusta's point of view. So you really get to know her as a character. What a marvelous character she is.
She is.
Yeah, it would be popular today to say she's a very self-confident person. I think she is that, but I would use the term determined.
Yes.
She's very determined.
Yes.
And that helps in many ways to make her life what it is. On the other hand, there's a cost to it.
Yes, yes. And in the 1920s, it was not an easy task for a woman to have a profession. And she managed to do that, which in itself is quite remarkable.
So this is a story of a young woman whose father is a pharmacist, owns and operates a pharmacy in an area of New York called Brownsville. I looked it up, and it really did exist. It's just what she says it is. We'll talk a bit later, ask her about the historical research that went into it, because she nailed it. It comes to life. We've all seen evocative images of early New York with the push carts and all that going on. It's a remarkable bit of history, and the story comes alive right there. So it takes place in Brownsville. pharmacy, the family lives upstairs. It would be common. And then the pharmacy has a room in the back where they compound the medicines. Today we think of it comes from the manufacturer in sealed jars. In those days, they were compounded, mortar and pestle, and shaped and put into packages and sold that way.
Yeah, and now we just think of big pharma. Yeah, it's just it's a whole different take on the way people were treated. Not only did the pharmacists compound the medications, but they also prescribed treatments for people. People would go to them before they would go to the doctor. And the other aspect of this story, Jonathan, is the fact that it's a comparison between homeopathic medicine and traditional medicine. And Augusta herself is a little bit torn between the two. She goes toward the traditional in the beginning, but somehow along the way she'll slip back into the homeopathic.
And that's going to be one of the most exciting aspects of the story. We haven't mentioned so far the very special character of Aunt Esther.
Yes.
So we're not giving too much of the plot away. Augusta, popularly known in the story as Goldie, is raised at the age of 12. Her mother passes away of diabetes. And it was a year later that insulin was discovered. So it was a terrible loss that she suffered and felt the remainder of her life. Part of her commitment to the pharmaceutical profession was remedies for people who have illnesses. Well, she goes to pharmaceutical school and she becomes a pharmacist and ends up running her father's pharmacy. Later in her life, she gets a job with medical facilities, hospitals, again in the role of a pharmacist. Don't want to give too much away, but that's the trajectory of the story. But the secret, one of the main secrets, and where the term love elixir comes from, is that darling Aunt Esther.
Yes, Aunt Esther also treated women particularly, and she did the treatments upstairs in her kitchen. And she had, when she arrived at the apartment to live with them, she brought with her an apothecary case. It was a case that had a lot of herbs and various leaves and roots and stems, all sorts of interesting things. And she used those to concoct soups and broths. And she was one of the first women to actually take women's issues seriously. Mm-hmm. She treated women for their various ailments that many male physicians and probably male pharmacists would just overlook. And she knew how to help them. And she was quite a character. So Augusta learned a lot from Aunt Esther about how to make certain things. But the main product was this chicken soup.
Yes.
And that was the real elixir for everyone.
In many ways it was. And I believe in that too. My wife makes a delicious chicken soup that she learned from her mom. I'm sure it was in the family. And it is known as a cure. Mm-hmm. If you're not well, my wife, Grandma, will bring you a bowl of chicken soup. Mm-hmm. And it works wonders.
Yes, and in the story, it worked quite well. She helped several people out by bringing them the broth from Aunt Esther.
Okay. Well, it's an exciting story. We've given you an introduction to it. We've told you a little bit about the beginning. Let's jump ahead. So what happens in 1987? She retires. There's a secret to her age, which finally comes out. After a long time pretending she was 70, she's really 80. She finally retires, and she goes to a retirement community in Florida. And there, a whole new adventure begins.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it certainly does. Yes. Yes.
It took a remarkable turn, and the story just re-emerges at this point.
Yeah, it's that's another theme of the story, second chances.
Yes, it is.
And timing. A lot of that plays into the story. So the author was very skilled, wasn't she, with bringing in these second chances and timing things the way she did, having events occur, you know, which seemed to be spontaneous. Sometimes they were not.
Elaine, speaking for myself, as I was the same age today as Goldie, Augusta, was when she moved to the retirement community. Mm-hmm. And I live in a retirement community. And it is a new start. Mm-hmm. A new start for me, for my wife, and I relish it. Mm-hmm. And I can only hope that the adventures I have from now going forward mm-hmm. are as exciting as some of Augusta's.
Yes, yes. It's a wonderful place for people to join together with other people in their age group and enjoy all sorts of activities that maybe their younger family members are not that interested in.
But we are a community.
Like
we are mm-hmm. a community here. And that's what Augusta finds in her new home and in her new life. So it's a wonderful story. I encourage everybody to get this book, read this book. One last thing. After I finished reading the book, I promptly downloaded the book from Audible so that my wife can enjoy it. So we get in the car and we drive to visit the grandkids and we listen to The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern.
Yes, it's really worthwhile either way.
Elaine, this is an exciting moment. We're about to introduce the author, have a great conversation with her, and learn so much more about the special time and place and characters. I'm so looking forward to this. We'll be back in just a moment. Welcome, Linda. It's such a pleasure to have you. Welcome to the Video Club of Laguna Woods. We do a production called Eyes on Books, where we have the pleasure of talking with some exceptional writers. Mm-hmm. You're now in New York City, so welcome from there.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to talk.
Thank you.
Dog you can't see him, but my dog is at my feet, so we'll hope that he stays quiet while we get to talk books.
We want to hear your stories. There's so much I want to hear, so just talk. I love the character. I just really love the character. There's so many ways I could characterize her. One of the things that struck me is making choices, not sacrifices. I don't know where I came up with that, but it so fits Augusta, Goldie.
Yeah, I love that. That's a nice way of looking at it. This book came, if it's okay with you, I'll just tell you all a little bit about the inspiration for it. It kind of came in two waves. So the first bit of inspiration just came from stories I had heard about my husband's great-grandmother, who was also named Augusta and also had the nickname of Goldie, although the book is not about her, but she was a pharmacist, and she graduated from pharmacy college in 1921 in New York. Her husband had been a pharmacist, and when he passed away very young and unexpectedly, she went back to school so she could keep the store. And she was always someone that, her life was fascinating to me. I, of course, never met her. She had passed away long before I met my husband, but she was an example of someone with so much grit and so much determination, and certainly a woman really ahead of her time. And so that idea for a story about a pharmacist who was a woman and the 1920s setting, all of that was kind of in my head for a long time, even as I was writing other books. But it was my dad, actually, who was the catalyst for this particular story, because in 2021, my dad took a fall. He wasn't well. He had been really active before that, and he was 84 years old, and he was just somebody who loved people. He was an incredibly social person, but when he got sick, it eventually became time. We knew that he had to move not to an active retirement community. He was already at an active community, but to an assisted living community. And when I moved him there, I sat with him so often, you know, in the lobby and talking to the other people living there. And that was where the sort of voices of Augusta and Irving really came to me. And my father, we lost my mom when she was 63. She was very young. So my dad had 15 years on his own, but he wasn't on his own. He was looking for love always. You know, he was dated many different women and he had different relationships. And even at 84, even when we moved him to his assisted living community, he was really looking for that still. And that really compelled me to write this story.
Never too late for romance.
Never too late. Never too late for so many things. That's really what this is all about. You know, this idea that it's never too late to make a new friend, to find a new hobby, to have a new outlook. You know, it's not over till it's over.
And your story is very inspiring in that regard, Linda. It's just makes us think twice about what we're doing every day.
Something, you know, I think about it a lot. Tomorrow is actually my birthday. So tomorrow I turn 57. And thank you. And I think about this a lot, especially around my birthday. You know, and it's something I tell my children too. And of course they're young and they're just starting out in their professional life, but I want them to know always, you know, that they're not stuck ever. And you can always move forward. You can always pivot. My writing career was a pivot for me. I was a lawyer for many years. And so this whole idea that, you know, it's never too late for second chances is something that I take very seriously in my own life. And I'm still, you know, just the other day I joined, I don't know if you guys have a Mahjong group there at your, but I play Mahjong. Yeah. And I started just 2 weeks ago, actually, I started playing with a new group of women who I really didn't know them before. And I'm so excited to be meeting new people and talking to new people. And I think it's just something that never stops, you know, that curiosity for other voices in your life.
Yeah, and it broadens your whole life. It really does. Meeting new people and doing new things, new types of activities, it opens up a whole new chapter. It's wonderful.
Yeah, what leaps to my mind as we're talking is at any age. The expression, at any age. You can start, you can have new adventures, you can even have old new adventures like we have here in the book, where Augusta and Irving, what a remarkable, what a clever idea. But you weave it together so well.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very well planned, very well thought out, very well researched. We know that.
Yeah, tell us about that, Linda. Your research as far as the 1920s pharmacies go.
Sure. This is my fourth historical fiction novel, and I love the research aspect of it. I research for a few months, usually before writing the book, and then, of course, I continue researching throughout. But this book, the first thing I really had to do was pick the time period. And I know, you know, I mentioned that my husband's grandmother was a pharmacist in the 20s, and that was part of why I chose the 1920s. But the specific years that the earlier timeline falls really came because of two reasons. And the first one was Prohibition. So this book, the older part of this book, when Augusta is a young woman, takes place during Prohibition. And during Prohibition, it was a very interesting time for pharmacies because they were one of the few places where you could sell alcohol legally. You could get a prescription for whiskey, 1 pint every 10 days for medicinal purposes. And I'll put that in quotes. And it was the prescription pads were government issued for that kind of thing. They were very highly regulated, and those pharmacies got the good, like the real bonded whiskey. It wasn't the stuff that people were cooking up in bathtubs or putting food dye in, or the wood alcohol that was making people so sick. It was the real stuff. And because of that, gangsters took note. They got interested. And a lot of them tried to open up sort of their own pharmacies, fake pharmacies on paper. They weren't real storefronts, but they were on paper so that they could get deliveries. And when the government cracked down on that, they went to the real pharmacies, and they would either flood them with fake prescriptions, or they would just hide out in the alley and steal the shipment of whiskey coming in. But that, to me, I love a gangster story. I knew that would add another layer of intrigue to the book and make it interesting, make it fun. The other aspect of the 1920s that was important to me was when I was thinking about this book, and I knew that Augusta would be the daughter of a pharmacist. And I knew before I wrote the book that, sorry, that's my dog, that she would be alone. She would have lost her mother. She has her sister, she has her father, but she loses her mother very young. And I wanted her mother to die of something that potentially Solomon Stern might have been able to help with. There's nothing more painful, more dramatic than the idea of this man having every medicine at his disposal except the one thing that would heal his wife. And so when I started researching illnesses and plagues, and there was, of course, the Spanish flu in 1919, all these different things. The one thing that stood out to me was diabetes, because before 1922, 1923, when insulin became available to the public, it was a death sentence. And so that was another reason for choosing that time period. But I read a ton of memoirs by pharmacists to sort of get that feeling for what the impact of a pharmacist at that time was in the community. So I read memoirs, I read a lot of magazines, these sort of old magazines that I got on eBay that were Western pharmaceutical, American Pharmacy Magazine, all the things that showed me what was going to be available on the shelves at the time that Augusta was a young woman, so that I could build that world of the pharmacy. And there was a lot of fun, looking into the soda fountains and all the things that went around that, all of the medicines that were available then. There was so much to dig into, and it was really fun.
You make it so vivid. You bring it to life marvelously. Let me ask you, I'm curious, from that perspective, looking back at that history that interested you and the family history and that, what brought you to the alchemy? What brought you to the apothecary?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And I'm wondering, when you were writing that, when you were describing Esther and her chanting, what was going through your mind? I think it would be such an interesting experience to write that. What were you thinking? What did that mean to you? Did that evoke very positive feelings, or? I hope we haven't lost all of that. I hope we haven't lost all that mystery.
It's a good question, a good series of questions. Esther has a lot of my grandmother in her, and my grandmother was definitely someone who, she was not a healer, she wasn't a nurse, she wasn't anything like that, but she was someone who really believed in food as medicine, kind of at a very, I think, a little bit ahead of her time. She was someone who spoke always about eating protein in the morning. Now everyone's so focused on protein, right? But my grandmother talked about it even when I was little. So even like in the 70s, my grandmother was saying you have to have protein in the morning because it fills you up. And she would hand you an orange and say, you need this, so you shouldn't get scurvy. Like, I don't know who was getting scurvy in 1970s Western Massachusetts, but my grandmother was fighting the fight against scurvy. She would give you, she ate a banana every day for potassium. She believed in whole food and nothing processed, and that was kind of how she lived her life. So that was sort of one aspect, and I was definitely thinking about her when I was writing Esther. But this idea of a slightly mystical character was something that I wanted to explore ever since I wrote my third book, which was called The Matchmaker's Gift, because that was the first book that I put a little touch of magical realism in the pages, and I loved doing that. And so I wanted to do that again. So I wanted a character who felt a little magical, and that was honestly why I chose the pharmacy setting too. It was, the time sort of felt right for me to write a book about a pharmacist, but I wanted to have that dichotomy, right? I have Solomon Stern on one side, who is completely by the book, following every scientific formula. And then on the other side, you have Esther, who's doing things very much, you know, by the light of the moon in the kitchen, chanting her chants and all of that. And Augusta's caught in the middle. She is stuck, wondering which is the way to go. And of course, both is the way to go, you know, to combine both.
Almost out of time. Please tell us a little bit more about your earlier books. I want to get one, so where should I go?
Yeah, sure. My first book was something that I worked on for a really long time, and I had the idea when my daughter was first born. It's called The Two-Family House, and that's my debut novel. And that is about, that's another Brooklyn novel, and it's set in the 1950s, so it's a post-war novel, and it's about two families. My mom grew up in a two-family house in Brooklyn, and she was upstairs with her family, her two sisters, and her mother's brother lived downstairs, and he also had three daughters, and they were raised together like sisters, you know, up and down the stairs all the time. And so that book is about two families. It's sisters-in-law, so it's brothers, and they share a business, they share so many things, they share this home, but one of them has three daughters and one has four sons. And on a winter night, both of the wives, the sisters-in-law, give birth in the middle of the 1947 blizzard, which was a real blizzard in New York. And the men are away, and there are two babies born, and something happens, and the women make a choice because, of course, you know, the one with all girls wants a boy, and the one with all boys wants a girl. And so there's a choice that's made that it reverberates throughout the generations. So that was my first story.
Is there a new book that you're working on now?
There is. This one is a tough one, but it's coming along. It's about a young woman. It's set in the 1960s, so it's also historical. It's about a young woman who has this recurring dream about a book that she wants to find because she feels that it's going to lead her to her real family. She's adopted, and this dream keeps popping up in her head, and she's on the hunt for a book in New York City.
Wow. Okay, nice. And that'll be out next year?
Hopefully, we'll see. I'm not sure yet because it's not done. I'm still writing it.
Good.
Well, good luck with your writing, Linda.
Thank you.
We appreciate all of your writing.
Keep writing.
Oh, thank you.
It's a
Thanks
gift.
so much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you for joining us this morning on Eyes on Books. We appreciate you being here, and we hope you enjoyed meeting Linda Cohen-Leugman and hearing about her newest book, The Love Elixir of Augusta Stern. Hope to see you next time. Bye-bye.